back and bigger than ever. It's the unofficial 40 from SoonerScoop.com. Now, here's the entire SoonerScoop crew. Carrie, Josh, Eddie, and Bob.
All right, we are here. It is time for another edition of the unofficial 40 podcast. The entire crew is here because we just had media day yesterday. George Stoya is here. Bob Przbillo is here. The man most likely to spend time in prison with Hunter Deckers, Eddie Radosevich is here. And Josh McQuistion joins us as well.
I'm for the functionality of entrepreneurs within the society of America, and I stand with Hunter Decker. What a class
and
individual.
His parents, apparently.
Yeah, and his parents, who seem like great people.
I don't think that your parents would allow you to fake a gambling personality.
No, probably not.
Is the interference with the investigations just simply based off of that?
I really haven't read much into it. I just kind of read the Cliff Notes.
But, I mean, a starting quarterback in the Big 12.
That's crazy. It's crazy that it's the expected starter going into the season for an offense that wasn't necessarily very good last year.
Could you imagine if Dylan Gabriel got that? I think OU fans would be like, oh, yeah, Jackson Arnold time.
I'd kill myself. Not being a part of some type of point-shaving scandal. I've said that before.
Not being a part of it?
Yeah, not being a part of it. Not being invited to be a part of it.
What was the
Not
30 on
running
30 for the guy at Rutgers? Was it Rutgers?
Oh, there's been a couple. HBO or Netflix did one of those specials about the guys out at Arizona State back in the mid-'90s.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that was a good one.
That was like the
Enjoyed that.
original one. And then Kent State had one a couple years ago.
Okay.
Well, I say a couple. I bet it's been more than 10, 15 years ago.
But I think this was like either Penn State or Rutgers or something like that. It was back east.
I can't remember. Iowa's punter got dismissed this morning as well as part of it. It seems like it's just a madhouse in Iowa right now with people gambling. But, who
knew?
It's kind of like one of those things, though. It's like I don't think that people should necessarily be as surprised as much as when you start talking about betting against your own team and stuff. That's where it kind of gets.
And see, I mean,
if a college football player wants to, have a 3-game NBA parlay
they should
on
be
a
able to do
Tuesday
that,
night,
yeah.
I don't really see why it matters.
Well,
but
and it's, the NFL, I mean, it's happening there, and that's the most, publicized thing. But the Iowa thing got really big because so many people were involved in starting quarterback was involved. But it's just like with everything, media and everything is so gambling driven now. It's like ESPN, they have their own gambling people. I think they just laid one of them off. It's like, who's to really know it? Because sports and gambling just seems to go hand in hand. So it's not like I don't think anybody's looking down on these players for doing this stuff. They're just like, well, should have known, or really should have been Iowa State and Iowa basically educating their players that they couldn't do it, because I'm sure none of that was going on. Which you wonder could have happened at Oklahoma. Has it happened at Oklahoma State? I
think part of it is the fact that it's so easy to do in Iowa.
Absolutely.
I mean, like when I lived in Colorado, you just get on the app and you lose all your money. I mean, it's that simple, And so I'm sure for them, like that's the way they did it. It's just I think it's more of a like if you're Hunter Deckers, like just how stupid can you be? And like the way that they did it,
but to fake your identity and all that.
Yeah, that's
stuff.
like it's like, what are you doing, man? Like,
are you really that good at gambling? Like, if he does get kicked out of football, basically, apparently he's got a pretty good gambling career.
Well, the Iowa kid, the kicker, he bet the under on the Iowa State game, and it actually went over. And I was like, that's actually a good bet. He got screwed.
Yeah,
he should have won a lot of money
beat
from that. Yeah.
So anyway, that's kind of what's going on. But we had media day yesterday. It is time, I think, for the Enjoy Vision fresh perspective look around as we talk about everything that's going on right now. And, yesterday was a very long day. Started out at 8 o'clock in the morning with Jeff Levy. And then I thought the most interesting part was, just getting to talk to him over on the side a little bit. But all the offensive assistants came in. I know we were all kind of enamored with DeMarco Murray and, how just his personality throughout yesterday. But Emmett Jones was great to talk to as well. He had some great quotes and some really interesting things to say about Jalil Farouk. And then the defense, Brent Venables had his press conference, and he was finally able to, comment publicly on his wife Julie's cancer diagnosis. And obviously thoughts and prayers are with the Venables family and those close to him, because I know George and I were over there talking to Brandon Hall. He had a lot of really, thoughtful things to say about Brent and what he's going through. And those guys have been together for so long. But I don't know, let's start with George. You just kind of your overall impressions of what you saw yesterday or what you heard.
Yeah, I just think that there was a lot of confidence. It felt like, and again, we heard it at Big 12 Media Days over and over again. But the competitive depth. I mean, that was a theme for all the assistants yesterday, talking about their units and just feeling like they got more talent in there, whether it was through the transfer portal or some of these freshmen that sounds like, some of these guys can make a real impact immediately. That was kind of my takeaway. I thought Brandon Hall, him talking about Brent and what he's going through, but also what they expect to happen this year, and talking about how they were able to go out and get the recruiting class that they were able to despite last season. He feels like that's a sign of what is to come and what people think this program can be going forward. So,
and I think just making all the new guys available was kind of like their moment to say, we're proud of what we did in the offseason.
And all those guys too, and I said this to Eddie yesterday walking out of there, that, and maybe it was different because we didn't get to talk to as many players when I was here last, but every player pretty much was a really good interview. Like, I enjoyed it's very clear they're recruiting, obviously, try to recruit high-level players, but...
And they talked about that. Like Todd Bates talked a lot about that yesterday. Like, if they can tell right away that a kid is not focused on football, or maybe he determined it like, not focused, but like if a player was moody.
Yes.
He said that if a player was moody, then that was a red flag for them, because they want guys that come to practice every day ready to work, and not guys that are going to be pissed off and not being into it that day. And that was kind of Eddie. I thought that was an overriding commentary yesterday, was that they recruit character as much as they do talent.
Well, and not only that, but I think that it also kind of plays into the idea, and Brent talked about this during his podium yesterday, just as far as instilling culture, the way that you practice. I think Hoove asked him, can you even practice getting off the field in third and fourth down? Is like, it almost pissed off Brent Venables to think that the idea that you can't practice that. And I think that, at some point it almost puts more expectation and more kind of intrigue into the season upcoming, just for the fact that it's almost like last year was a building of culture and they had to fit everything in. And you hear coming out of the summer how well things went with Schmitty, and, everybody kind of going through this for the second time outside of the obvious freshmen and the transfers. But at the same time, they really wanted to instill a culture of, almost a mentality of what is being asked of you every day. And that's why it almost puts more pressure on you this season, that if things do go south and it's not bad, if it's not good, then it's almost like oh shit, here we go. Like, this is for real. Like, this maybe not work out. And so I don't know. I'm kind of like you, George. I think that it was one of those days that, everybody wins the press conference. I thought everything that was said yesterday was was probably pretty predictable. But at the same time, I think that when you look at, kind of what they brought in, and as cliche and as, repetitive as it may be with the competitive depth stuff, you can go through the defensive line and there's a bunch of bodies there. They have to be contributors, though. They have to be difference makers.
Yeah, and Bob, I thought if there was one player that the coaches, felt like embodied what they're looking for in guys that are on the team right now, Gavin Freeman is the poster boy.
He absolutely is. And Brent mentioned, hey, that doesn't mean our receiver room, what? He said sucks? Like, no, that doesn't mean...
I laughed when he said that.
That doesn't mean it sucks. It tells you what Gavin has been able to do in the year and a half that he's been a part of the program. And it's also, what my thought from yesterday is that you can't worry about people's feelings being hurt. And I think we used to see that with Lincoln Riley. The kitty gloves, the way they would recruit, like, oh, we won't recruit any receivers in this class because we got them. We won't recruit a quarterback in this class because we got it for the last one. It's like, you have to stack them. And Brent mentioned it, and that's why it's just, you come off of spring practice, you get a Troy Everett. Doesn't matter, Andrew Rames coming back. You get a Troy Everett. You just keep pushing these people every single step, and you can't worry about them being offended. It's like, I have to build the best program possible. You need to figure out how you fit into it.
I think he said at one point, didn't he, something to the effect of every player on this roster knows we're trying to recruit over them. We're trying to replace.
He
them.
said, "My job is to recruit over you every single year. Your job is to figure out how you fit,
Stay on the field,
and
yeah.
take advantage of the chances you get."
So, I mean, a lot more to get into. That's kind of a little preview. I know, Eddie, you can see something on the table with your own eyes because this is what started to happen, I guess, at the office. Now, I don't know if you guys have ever experienced this. I know Comrade Static, our good friend, he sent me, what's the stupid movie with Jeff Bridges? The
Big
dude.
Lebowski?
The Big Lebowski. He
Come
was
on,
so upset.
stupid movie.
No, I mean, come on.
All
Let's not get
time.
into-
I'm walking out.
I love the movie.
I'm
okay?
going to side with George on this one.
I
That's
love the
kind of
movie.
sacrilege.
There are a lot of things that I'm stopping to call stupid. Jimmy Buffett's one of them too. He's off my bad list.
Great concert.
Stop it. Anyway, so like he sent me the Big Lebowski DVD one time because he was so offended that I'd never seen the movie. Someone yesterday sent Josh an Arsenal jersey to the office. Did you know who this person was, Josh? Was this something arranged?
Yes, this was arranged. Somebody messaged me, and this was back, I would say, in like March. And we can get into why this got complicated in a second, and had said, hey, I'm going to London. I think his granddaughter was playing in a bunch of soccer, like some big soccer tournament in England, and was like, I'm actually going to be at Arsenal Stadium. Well, I had a particular Arsenal jersey I was dying to have, and I was like, I buy maybe an Arsenal jersey every 3 years, like not real regularly, but I do it often if I really like one. And so I said, hey, if you would get this jersey with this name and number on it, I'll pay you double what it cost you. Like just for the effort, I'd be happy to pay you for it.
Are you paying?
And he's like, I
Scoop
got
dollars.
It. No,
Okay.
I this was out of pocket. So and he said, okay, great. So he gets over there, and he's like, I got it. Great. And I mean, I admit it, I was very specific about the one I wanted. Like, this is it. This is the one I want. So he sends me a picture. And I don't know that I've told him this, and I don't have the heart to tell him this anywhere else. It wasn't the one I wanted.
Oh, no.
But
Who is
it's
Saliba?
fine. It's Saliba. And that's 100%. Arsenal has it's their. I wanted their road jersey with just like black with gold lettering. It's badass.
I've seen
looking.
that one, yeah.
You cannot find it anywhere. Like it is gone to the world. And I was like, and so I was like, I paid him anyway because it was just, obviously. But it was one of those things where he sent it to me and I was like, oh man, I was so crestfallen. Like it was just not exactly what I dreamed of. But it is a cool jersey. I can say that it's from London. It went through all this. But yeah, we arranged all that previously. But the problem is we were arranging it right about the time we moved to On3. So having the messages link up was a real problem. Like I kind of lost track of him
on the board.
And then he found us on the site. And so I was like, I really don't want this guy to have to eat all this money because he doesn't know how to contact me, but I don't know how to contact him. So it was kind of a whole thing. But we got it sorted out.
I'm having a similar issue like with Granansky right now. I'm trying to get him, on the board and stuff. And even while we're doing the pod, he's texting me, what's my password? So I'm sorry, Granansky. I'm trying to get you taken care of, and I will as soon as the pod's over. But, yeah, I mean, that's a good point. Like, a lot of people, you listen to the pod, we have moved to a new network. It's On3. We've got a special going on through camp right now. Either if you want to get an annual, which we always recommend because we know that you're going to stay, it's 25% off annuals right now, so it's $75. Or if you want to just try us out, you're not sure, it's $1 a month for 1 month. Pay $1 for 1 month. That's just 1 month. It doesn't keep repeating, but that's a special if you want to try out the site, get all of our camp coverage, which if you're on the site right now, we probably set a scoop record for the amount of content we put online yesterday. I mean, it has to be in double digits, right? I mean, it's crazy.
It is.
So we're going to have tons more of that. Brent's great with practice access, so we're going to be out there watching on Friday. We're going to talk to Brent again on Friday. So go sign up. Just go to SoonerScoop.com. Click subscribe now. It's a big green button up in the corner, and enter that. Just click on that link, and it'll take you right to the page to sign up for $1 for the next month. So or get 25% off that annual. So thanks for bringing that up. But Eddie, I didn't know that and that was the thing, Josh. Like you weren't excited when I posted that picture, and I was like, okay, I guess Josh really thinks I threw it away, so that kind of explains it.
No, when you posted it, I thought you meant like I thought you were fucking around. Like I didn't think you really were unsure of how that came to be in our office. Like
I really wasn't. I mean, had no idea.
It's an Arsenal jersey. Like it.
I just figured there was a scooper out there that just wanted to send you a jersey.
Sure.
And if you want to send George a real watch, you can do that too because he needs a real watch.
And this is a primary difference that I think people misunderstand about Carrie and I. Carrie would send you the address to send it to. I wouldn't give out my home address to anyone that is not like someone I have known for half a decade. Like George is questionable. I might give George my home address. Wow. I'm not sure.
I'll find it.
But Carrie's like, he's got like members with his number.
Yes, Sooner in Columbia just texted me this morning because he wants to come by the office when he's in town.
That's not fair. Jern has my number. Jern is the one member I know that has my phone number.
Grimlock is the only idiot of all the people that I've given my number to. All right? I mean, he's the only one who has crossed a line. And I mean, there's like, I like people text me and tell me about their weekends, and I talk to them. It's fine. Like, Comrade Static was telling me that he was going to see a comedian. Who was it? I don't know. Friday night in Tulsa. So
you don't ever ask about my weekend.
Oh.
I don't think your boss wants to know about your weekends. That's kind of I've learned with Eddie. I don't need to. What I don't know is better for you.
That's probably true.
I see enough on Instagram.
I'd fixate, guys. Carrie was scarred enough with me in my 20s, so like I think he's just learned.
And he threw up in a brand new car. I mean, nobody's going to top that.
That wasn't my fault.
It absolutely was your fault. You found the hospitality room at the Fiesta Bowl, and you couldn't handle it. I handled it quite well, actually. It just the next morning was like puke in my car said otherwise.
It's a top 5 hangover, like no doubt about it. 100% top 5 hangover. I felt awful.
Guzzled
like,
that morning. I remember
that
that morning you guzzled like 2 of those Blue Mountain Powerades.
Yeah, and we went to that the restaurant that was on the
practice before you
diners, drive-ins, and dives or whatever. I couldn't eat. It was a bad day. It was a bad day. It was a really, really bad day. You know what was a good day for me, though?
When you got Perfect Vision?
When I got Perfect Vision from Enjoy. Enjoy Vision is the best laser vision center in Oklahoma City, and it's not even close. The combination of mind-blowing technology, experienced eyeball surgeons, and exceptional patient care is life-changing. It was life-changing for me. What Enjoy Vision is going to do for the U40 listener is pretty cool. $400 off LASIK. All you have to do is go to enjoywithme.com and use the promo code U40. That is NJOY withme.com, promo code U40, and you can start seeing like me. Enjoy Vision. This is where you LASIK.
All right. I think as of yesterday,
it's also John Chin's fault too. I mean, we drink like 2.5 bottles of tequila.
The hospitality room will get you. I mean, it's like being a kid going to a candy store. You're going to get a stomachache.
What is that? Is that my computer?
Yes. Please turn that off.
Well, I don't understand
it's an
why.
autoplay ad or something? Are you on ESPN.com?
No, I'm on SoonerScoop.com, which we apologize for.
On 3, you've ruined the podcast. Way to go.
Sons of bitches.
All right. No, I think yesterday we talked a little bit about it, but, Brent coming out and talking about Julie's cancer, I think it was good that he finally got to say it because, he'd said it at the women's outing. Your mom was there.
Yeah.
There was another lady I knew that was there, and I had a friend that's a mutual friend of hers. He texted me, say, "Hey, did you hear about this cancer stuff with Brent's wife?" And I was like, "Yeah, we knew it. We just, didn't because we found out, and it was just like we talked about. Like, it's kind of one of those things. Like, yes, it's journalism if you find something out and you need to report it, but when it comes to personal stuff like that, it just wasn't my place. I felt, or our place, to break that. That wasn't breaking news. That felt sleazy to me. So we." And the reason that we have relationships while we find that stuff out is because they know we're not going to throw that out there before the family's ready.
Yeah.
And it had to be on their terms, I thought.
And I think it's much different if it's team news or, if somebody gets arrested or if, something like that happens. This is
something that affects
a very
play on
personal.
the field.
The only reason that it is, quote unquote, a major story is because it's the head coach's wife. And
right. And it's a serious situation.
Yeah. Well, and me and Eddie spoke because they announced it publicly at the coaches' luncheon, and we were like, we should probably post something on the board. So we put something short on the board about it, but we reiterated it was not something for public eyes. But of course it got out, and I think it was good that he addressed it and can kind of move forward. But it's just it's a tough situation.
It's awful, and I don't think that something like this there's never a awful time. But on top of Brent's job and his responsibilities over the next 6 months, 7 months, it's a strain. You truly feel for the guy having to go through something like this. And then he talks about his mom and the way that she passed, having stage 4 cancer, which it's awful. It's an awful disease, and we just wish the best for Julie and
I believe
everybody
there was
a part of the Venables family.
Some confusion there. I know when we had been told it was discussed as stage 2. When people close to Brent were letting us know what was going on, because we reached out and said, hey, this is floating around.
Yeah.
We wanted to let you know because this might get out there if you guys wanted to. We didn't know how long. Like when we found out, it wasn't shortly after her diagnosis.
Sure.
So they were still dealing with the emotions of it. And that's why, you want it to be on their terms. You want them to prepare themselves and their family and those close to them, because I can't imagine what it would be like to find out on the internet that someone close to you has cancer without you being told first.
Yeah, it's just the whole thing is awful, and it's kind of weird to segue into everything that was football yesterday, but it's just it's an awful time right now for them, and you just hope the best.
And two boys, 2 girls,
sure.
2 girls, 3 girls,
2 girls,
2.
Yeah.
2 and 2.
So it's an entire family that's affected, an entire coaching staff, an entire team. An athletic department. So. But thoughts and prayers, and I know they appreciate your thoughts and prayers, for Julie to make it through this. They are confident that, everything's going to go well. And it's going to take some time, and it'll be a couple of months of treatment and recovery and things like that. And as Brent said yesterday, radiation, chemo, that'll be determined depending on the results of the first, surgery. So, praying for the family and hope for the best.
No doubt.
All right. Before we get back to football, there was something else that happened this week, and I really find it strange. And I know I'm not trying to put you in a bad spot, Bob, because you are a basketball guy. You have a very good relationship with Porter, but I asked you what you told me. Okay, Porter's got a press conference, and I guess I got the email, but you sent out the information like this at the time, and my first question was, but why?
But why?
Yeah, but why?
But why?
On August 1st or July 31st?
July 31st
is Porter Moser having a media session with reporters and players. So, what was the reason behind? What was said?
I think it was just a chance for him to maybe drum up some interest into what's going on into next season, get some public comments about the transfers. All we've had is press releases. Mm-hmm. We hadn't talked to Porter since Kansas City, since the middle of March.
And they've practiced and stuff.
Yeah, and they've been practicing since, the first week of June, just like football, and he's just been really busy, between name, image, likeness, and the transfer portal, and just it's been as busy as the 4 or 5 month span that he's had in a long, long time. And they were coming toward the end. I believe Tuesday was the final practice. You're not going to do some basketball media on football media day, so go ahead and make it Monday. But you got to hear his excitement. I guess you just wanted to hear he's not defeated. The way the first 2 seasons have gone, clearly not the way that they all envisioned it going, but he's still, fighting the good fight. He's confident about what he got through the transfer portal. Longer, more athletic, better scoring, guys that fit the system better. But then once you think you get it good, then Emmanuel Dildy leaves for Duke last week, and that was a huge blow just because he's done so much for the program. He even got the promotion last month, and that's the good and bad thing. You hire really well with the assistants, they're going to leave. He's had 8 former assistants that are head coaches, and now since going to OU, one of them, David Patrick, he had KT Turner leave after the first year to go to Kentucky. Now Dildy leave to go to Duke. He's clearly still doing things right. It just has to start translating with on-the-court success.
All right. Well, I mean, it's interesting. I think basketball, obviously, there's a lot of discussions that need to happen. I mean, arena, NIL, I mean, all of that stuff. It does seem like Porter's at quite a bit of a disadvantage. And at some point,
kind of amazing that he's brought in 2 players in each of the 2 classes here that were top 100 guys.
Yes. I mean, that's the one thing. That's where you kind of put all your eggs into a basket and say, he is recruiting at an elite level for a program that maybe doesn't suggest that should be happening.
Right.
A little bit like Brent with the first year, but now it's like back-to-back years of elite guys. I think Caden Cooper is going to end up starting by the time conference season rolls gets here. Otega, Los, they're already the cornerstones. They're taking ownership. They're taking leadership. I mean, that's where this program is hopefully, in Porter's words, going to get old together. It's going to happen with those guys. It's retaining those guys. It's hearing Otega and Los say flat out, we weren't looking at the portal. We never considered it for a second. We didn't care if people were trying to poach us. All we were focused on is what did we need to do to get OU better this next season.
I'll pledge this right now. Like, Porter, you have an open window to come on the pod anytime you want. We'll make a special pod, with you and Bob if you want to do that. We'll do it with players. We'll do some NIL. Like, if he needs some promotion, we'll promote. I mean, that's what we're here to do is to get more into the OU monster, the athletic department, and I'm down for that. Like, and Lon was so open, but it didn't really result in anything because it was just Melba toast. I mean, it was just kind of vanilla. I mean,
it was.
It
was awesome. It was
great.
But yeah,
and you knew what was going on. But they're really, I think Porter. Not that he's closed up. I think he's a good guy. Every time I've dealt with him, I've really enjoyed talking to him. But yeah, I mean, he needs to promote the program a little bit more, and we need to figure out exactly what the athletic department's going to do with the stadium situation. And the city of Norman thing never really materialized after they did the survey. Like, it must have been that they didn't get enough support or something, because they never released any of that stuff.
George, you think we'll hear something at the next Board of Regents?
Yeah, I got asked that question in one of my recent mailbags. I can't remember if it was this week or last week, but I heard that the survey thing that they sent out, they're still evaluating that, was the phrase that I was told,
wow.
And that there should be some sort of update at the next Board of Regents meeting, which I believe is September something, like early September. So hopefully we get an update about that soon, but they have to make a decision, I would assume, this year on
they have to.
What either you're going to renovate it or you're building a new arena.
Well, and they've committed to the new football facility, so that's another kink in there because they've got to raise money for that. And we all know how this goes. You're building new dorms. You got athletic facilities.
You drive by to Lloyd Noble, you see Love's Field.
Love's Field is making great progress. I mean, have you guys driven over by there recently?
Yep.
Yeah. You can see
Monday.
grandstands going up. And then they've got the baseball renovations coming. So it's going to be tough. But I mean, at some point you've got to do something. And Lloyd Noble's been pushed to the back burner time and time again. And stop with the field house. They're not renovating the field house. That's never going to happen.
September 12th. Board of Regents. Okay. All right, we're going to move on. Also want to remind you guys before we get back to some football and football recruiting, primeshrimp.com. It is ridiculously hot out there. Just getting in the car and going somewhere is just a pain in the ass, especially with families. Go check out primeshrimp.com. You can get restaurant quality meals right at home, right at your doorstep. They deliver it right to you. And if you use the promo code SCOOP or U40, use that promo code U40, you're going to get 25% off your entire order, $50 or more. You can pick from all the different flavored shrimp that they've got, the New Orleans-style barbecue, the Louisiana shrimp crab boil, or Louisiana shrimp boil. I got that all messed up. French Quarter Alfredo, Signature Cajun,
Garlic herb butter, and Josh and I have both had it. George, we're going to get some in your hands soon, I promise. We're also going to get your name changed on the start of the podcast.
I can always just order it myself. I'm just being lazy and haven't done it yet.
I'll give our guys a shout today because I believe I need to do that anyway. But anyway, primeshrimp.com, great sponsor of the pod. They take care of us, take care of them. Go order your Prime Shrimp. Get an easy meal at home. You just boil some water under 10 minutes, take it out of the package. You got restaurant quality food right in front of you and healthy. So go check them out, primeshrimp.com. Use that promo code U40 and get 25% off any order of $50 or more. Let's take a little break from Media Day and get into some recruiting.
4 commits, Josh.
Lots to talk about there. And
You ready?
I feel like we need to reward Josh coming off of basketball talk anyway.
Josh, you want to start 2025 or 2024?
Sorry, you got to warm me up a little bit. I checked out there for a while, but now we're ready. No,
we're burning this Arsenal jersey right now.
I think you could really start anywhere. I think what's happening in 2025 might be the most interesting, but I know for most people, 2024 being more immediate obviously gives a little more credibility.
Party at the Palace already paying off. Go ahead.
Yeah, and we talked about this last week. It was a smaller event. There wasn't a lot of the headliners that you saw last year, the Colton Vosiks, the David Hicks, the Makari Vickers, some of those kind of guys. But I think it was a really good shot at kind of getting the class to gel a little bit, getting a lot of the commitments together. Especially, I think on the offensive line, it was kind of interesting where you had a couple of commitments like Eugene Brooks and Isaiah Autry mixing with Josh Iasosa and Grant Bricks. So I think you saw some of that coming together. Obviously, like Bob alluded to, Michael Patterson McDonald makes his decision on Monday night, commits to Oklahoma. Not a huge surprise to anyone, but obviously another kind of domino to fall for Oklahoma where they start to get, you just start looking at what they have left, some of the elite guys on their board. The things that are happening around those players are not only good for Oklahoma, but they're making some really smart moves. And I think when we talk about Michael Patterson McDonald, it obviously leads you down the road to one of his very good friends, David Stone. Michael talked to Eddie and Bob at his announcement about he and David talking about playing together since they were kids. There was even some, quiet talk that I know some people kind of learned of that David Stone took a look at playing at Westmore this year. I mean, that was a realistic possibility at one point in the spring, but it decided to stay at IMG. I think both, he and his mother came to that being the best, kind of resolution to his senior year for David. But those guys want to play together. Then you throw in Jaden Jackson, and I think the most interesting move of all was the situation with bringing Chris Littlehead to come and work with a bunch of the defensive linemen. Chris Littlehead is David Stone's trainer. He also works with Bergen Kaiser, who committed today. There's a lot of stuff OU's doing that we talked for years about Oklahoma not doing the things in the background that would help them land recruits. Guys, a perfect example, and I'm going really far afield here, I apologize, but like Jacob Phillips. When Jacob Phillips committed, Eddie, Carey, I know. Everybody's upset. I hear it. People are yelling at their cars.
We just had a much more pleasurable trip to Nashville, so we're good.
One of the things that I heard people talk about in the background was that LSU, whether they plan to take some of the guys that trained with Jacob's trainers or not, they offered those guys, and OU wouldn't do it. OU would not offer those guys. They weren't involved with them. And I think it hurt OU's relationship with that trainer, and it kind of let LSU in the back door. And we all saw how that played out. I think Oklahoma now, this staff does a much better job of understanding those relationships and the things that you have to do to make – it's not just about we recruit that player or we recruit mom and that player. There's a lot of people around these big elite recruits like David Stone or Williams Nwaneri, and you have to make sure all those people are getting their moment in the sun, so to speak. And that's not to say that Chris Littlehead isn't a good trainer. There's a lot of kids that work with him. He's good at what he does. He's a kid I covered when he was a recruit. So like I think I said I called him a kid when I recovered him. But whatever. Chris is a good dude. Known him a long time.
All right, Josh. So
I like what they're doing. Yeah, go ahead, Bob. I've gone on a wild, far afield there.
In a way, that almost sounds like it's a pity offer. So I'm just a common fan here. Patterson McDonald belongs in this class, though.
I think so. I think you have to understand that, and again, talking to the fans that feel this way, you have to understand not every guy is going to be a future All-American. Like, the math says if you get, 10% of your class, 15% of your class to play anywhere near that, you've got a really good class. Like, that's really, really good. And so I think people have this conception that every guy, you've got to shoot for the moon. Every guy's got to be this unbelievable player. And I think Michael Patterson McDonald could be a multi-year starter. Like, I think that's possible. Is it exactly what I would predict? No, probably not. But I can see a world where that happens. But at the same time, I think he's a kid that's bought in on the program. He believes in what the coaches believe in. He's going to be a guy that's in there in the locker room and going to work the way they want him to work, going to do the things that are asked of him. So I think there's a lot that they like beyond just the talent. But he's a better player than people think. Like, people are trying to make him into like, oh, it's just like you said, Bob, like a courtesy offer. That's not the case. Like, OU wouldn't have done that. They would have done what they've done with some other guys in the state, where they said, okay, we're going to get you an NIL deal. We're going to make you a preferred walk-on. We're going to give you every amenity we can possibly give you, short of giving you a scholarship. They didn't have to offer him, but they knew, that yes, sure, it helps with David Stone, because we've talked about it a lot. David was on the phone when Todd Bates offered Michael Patterson McDonald. That can't be ignored. I mean, it's just a reality. But at the same time, there are other guys in the state that they are jumping through these hoops with, like, we want you to know we want you, but we can't quite offer you a scholarship. So, again, he's a good player. I think he's got some physicality to him. He closes well. I think more than anything, he's a very smart player, and I guarantee that's what Brandon Hall and Brent, when they watch him, that's what they fall in love with. He's a guy, when he sees it, he triggers really fast, and he's going to be all over the field. So I like him more than most people do. But at the same time, I do think you have to understand the context of, like, it's okay if a guy you sign is maybe his best case scenario is a multi-year starter. Like, I compared him to Will Johnson. I could see that for him. Like, play some corner, play some safety, does a little bit of everything. Hopefully they don't try to line him up over a tight end against Ohio State. Let's not repeat that. But other than that, like, there are ways he can be a very useful player.
I think there's also maybe a bigger commentary here just talking about, and it's a little bit of what they've already started to do in 2025, Josh, just as far as it was something that Brent talked about from literally day one, locking down the state of Oklahoma. And, I think that we could probably get into that commentary just as far as, what they're already doing in 2025, what they're doing in 2024, even with Bergen Kaiser today, even though he's probably, most likely, I think that we've confirmed he's going to be a preferred walk-on. You want the best players in the state to stay in the state, in Oklahoma, and come to Oklahoma and play and be a part of the program. I don't know how much that truly means at the end of the day, but it's something that Brent said he wanted to do. And you look up about a year and a month or whatever into this thing, and that's what they're doing.
I don't think there is anything. There's a lot of stuff that Brent said in that initial press conference, and we've talked about some of it, that I think he's learned to flex on a little bit. I don't think there's been any flexion on what they were going to do in state. Like, they were going to make that a priority. I can tell you, as that staff came in, one of the first conversations I had was someone seeking out any name of any validity in the state of Oklahoma. And they have followed that, and they have dug deep, and they find guys. Guys, I mean, Bergen Kaiser is a great example. Bergen Kaiser, I can tell you, comes from a family that has some Oklahoma State connections. Like, I'm not saying he grew up an OSU fan. I won't say that I've had that conversation with Bergen, but I know there are people around him in his family that are. And so it's interesting to see that Oklahoma was able to make this push. I remember Eddie, when we were there that day at camp and I saw him and we talked a little bit, I was like, okay, Oklahoma's just kind of keeping him around. And then when he showed up at the party at the Palace, you're like, oh, they have some plans here. They're doing something. And I spoke to a source yesterday, and they were like, yeah, we're trying to work on some NIL stuff, going to make that work for him as well as they can. And I think that's amazing. This is kind of like and I don't know if only Carrie and I will really remember this, but this goes back to like in the 80s when Nebraska was using all those weird scholarships. Sure. Like they had guys that had never wrestled before on the wrestling team using, that are football players for any other.
Every county in Nebraska would put together
county scholarships,
right?
Yeah.
100%. And I know in baseball, LSU has done some similar stuff like that in the past. So there is, it's the difference being this is all completely legal. Like Oklahoma can do this, and I think it's awesome. And talking to a few people around Santa Fe, they were like, "This is the good of NIL. This is when it can be really good that a kid like Bergen Kaiser can get an opportunity." And guys, I mean, Eddie, you've seen in-state walk-ons. There aren't many that look like Bergen Kaiser. I mean, he is 6'4", 230, and he's cut out of wood. Like he is a big, sturdy dude. And to have that guy to add to your roster, he's in that extra that 86 to 105 group. Man, I mean, you start making your walk-on program like that, and those kids get compensated. They're not just coming because they love the program. They're coming because they know you want them, and I think that's a huge deal. And this, like I said, it is. As you look around the state, you're seeing this pay off. I've put in 2 predictions in the last 48 hours for Oklahoma to land elite 2025 prospects, Marcus James at Carl Albert and Jaden Nickens at Millwood. Guys, not only is OU, in my opinion, going to get a star at Millwood, but they're going to get him early. Do you remember what a dogfight Millwood was for years? And now I think they're in great shape to maybe have Jaden Nickens in their class before the start of the season.
It's kind of amazing. And I know we're going to get back into the media day stuff here in a second, but just listening to Emmett Jones talk about, being in the job that he's in now and developing players, I mean, it's very apparent why he has started already to stack classes in 2024 and 2025. Were any of you over there? Very infectious.
When he was talking about Gavin Freeman?
Yeah, I asked the question.
Okay. Explain that whole thing, because that was fascinating.
Well, he was basically talking it kind of came down to, I think the first question that I asked him basically was,
you talked about the room.
You talk about competitive depth, and I know that that's become kind of a cliche line throughout, the entirety of what has been the summer. And your room, is that not the best example of that? Because there are so many bodies in there that are going to be vying for playing time. And, he answered the question, and it kind of spilled into, Gavin Freeman has to be the perfect example of what you're talking about. Somebody that doesn't really care about, what he was rated. He basically said he could be a 5-star, he could be a walk-on. It doesn't matter to me. And then that kind of delved into the Gavin Freeman stuff. I know that we're going to talk about the media day wrap-up stuff here later, but it just kind of made me think of what they're doing as far as recruiting. It's very apparent, talking to all the coaches yesterday, that Miguel Chavis, Emmett Jones, Todd Bates, all of these guys have very passionate, infectious personalities, and you can tell why a team that went 6-7 last year was able to hold on to a top 5 class. You can tell why 2024 they've already started off on the right foot in getting the number 1 player in the country and a running back in Taylor Tatum. And it's just it makes a lot of sense, and especially with the focus that they have on the state of Oklahoma. It's like a guy like Xavier Robinson, Josh. There's no chance he's in this class had a previous staff recruited him. They probably wouldn't have even recruited him. And it's starting to make a little bit more sense. It always, you always fall back on this idea. It's going to have to come together on the field. There's no doubt about that, because that's how they're going to be judged. But at the same time, you can kind of start seeing what they're angling and what they're trying to do, both on the team side as well as the recruiting side of things. And, I guess it makes sense for now when, they haven't gone out and played like shit. But at the same time, it's kind of exciting that it does seem like there's a vision, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Well, and specifically what I was talking about was, the recruiting of Gavin Freeman at Texas Tech.
And how Jones was told to not
that
contact him. Stop talking to him.
So Emmett Jones basically, he put it out there that, when he departed from Tech, he had gotten a text message that said to basically stay away from him, kind of. It was almost kind of a threat, wasn't it?
From Gavin?
From Gavin. Not from Gavin, but about Gavin to stay away from him.
Because he said Gavin was one of the first calls that he made. And I was like, don't ever do that again.
Yeah, and I think that the way that Tech handled that whole situation, they really fumbled it. Really pissed people
off Gavin off.
Yeah, absolutely. To go from your only scholarship offer to basically being told a couple days before you're supposed to sign that not only they basically told him, hey, why don't you look around a little bit? You're not so welcomed here, and especially in this early signing period. And, I think that it was Oklahoma's game. They took a chance on him. And as it turns out, he's turned into, Brent Venables is talking like he's the best wide receiver in the group. I have some interesting Gavin Freeman stuff later on in the program that we can talk about when we're talking about wide receivers.
Okay. Anything else recruiting wise that you want?
Yeah.
We've hit one.
Yeah, we've hit one guy. Josh, 2024. It was always going to be the plan. They were always going to take another quarterback, and obviously Brendan Zurbrugg from Alliance, Ohio, is next in line. 6'3", 180. Came in over the weekend and ends up committing to Oklahoma on Tuesday.
I'm just excited that we have our first future staffer on the OU roster. Radosevich, McQuistion, Stoya, Zurbrugg. It writes itself. Kerry may need a legal name change to fit the weird Midwestern style names, but we're going to go with it.
Jared asked me the other day if I on purpose hire people with last names that are difficult to pronounce. I told him that's diversity, and no one can tell me anything otherwise.
Yeah,
that's what I believe diversity to be.
Yeah, we've got, between Eddie and Bob, I think we've got the Eastern Bloc covered. We are strong there. So I don't know what Stoya. I don't know that one at all.
It's Romanian, yeah.
Okay, yeah. So
Born from
now we might need to spread out a little bit. I think we're getting a little Eastern European there. We might have to work on this a little bit.
We need an Irishman maybe because we got two Scots.
Yeah. Yeah, but I can't work with those people. Hey, they're great.
All right.
Great.
DEI training starts next week.
But no, Brendan Zurbrugg. We've talked about this as far as clearly Oklahoma wanted a second quarterback in this class, and I think it's easy to understand why. Next year you're going into the year with Jackson Arnold and whatever basically you bring in this offseason, because there is. I don't think there's any expectation that Dylan Gabriel is going to be around. Davis Bevel, it's going to be a young quarterback room. There's no other way to say that. So they needed a guy, and with Brendan Zurbrugg, I think they've found a pretty interesting guy. This is a guy that I didn't even realize it, but as I was writing up some of the commitment articles, this is a guy that's run sub 11 in the 100 meters in high school. So very good athlete, fits what Lebby wants to be able to do with some of that quarterback run game. When you watch him throw, it's not perfect, but he's good mechanically, really does a nice job staying square. I think is very good in the upper body. But what I like is you see some touch on his downfield throws. He really is good throwing the ball vertically. I've got to think that was a big appeal for Jeff Lebby. Not a huge arm, but very good with his timing, his placement. I think this is a guy that if he was to hang around for several years, doesn't come in and, like we see so many quarterbacks come in, they don't win the starting job and they leave the next year or whatever. But if he was willing to stick it out, maybe beyond Jackson Arnold's tenure, maybe he develops into something. I think he's kind of interesting, given some time to fill out his frame. I mean, you can tell on tape, he's a very lean guy. Like I said, does a lot of track. So there's, I think he's a pretty good hurdler from what I've come to understand. So I think there are pieces that I like here that make a lot of sense. And again, you're getting another guy that can come in. Even if you want to look at it from the angle of he was going to go to Syracuse or Northwestern, so got to be a pretty sharp kid from what you can understand. You'd think he'd pick things up pretty rapidly. And I like the pickup as far as what he is. I'm not saying he's going to go be an All-American, but for fitting OU's needs and still having some upside, I think he's kind of interesting.
Let's close out 2024 talk because we have to. Williams, Winery, and Caden Durham. What's changed in the last week?
Oh, wow, Bob. Way to just drop that one on me. No. With Williams and Winery, it sounds like he's pushed back this decision another week. It was supposed to be next Monday, August 7th. Now it sounds like it's going to be August 14th, but that's one of those things that at one point it was going to be the 1st, and then it was going to be the 7th, and then it's going to be the 14th. Like at some point you think it's going to happen, but I just don't know. I'm kind of the opinion this is OU and Missouri. I know Tennessee kind of keeps trying to talk like they're in it, and I'd be foolish to write Georgia off completely, but just based on the conversations I'm having, it sounds like it's OU and Missouri to me. I think Oklahoma has the relationships. I think Oklahoma has the NFL track record with Bates and Venables and that staff. I think Missouri has a big-ass bag of NIL, like one of the biggest numbers I've ever heard in a non-quarterback conversation. I mean, it's huge. I mean, and I will say, just because it's been thrown around on our board some, there's been talk of 750 a year, and I'm not even going to tell you that's that far off. Like, I don't think that's not that far off from the numbers I've heard. So that can give you an idea. And I know people will say, oh, Oklahoma's put together a really good package. Like, it's not this is Missouri knows Eli Drinkwitz is up against the wall, and they are throwing massive bags at him and Ryan Wingo. Just absolutely huge numbers. And it's interesting talking to Missouri folks for like, what is that going to do? What is that going to fix? If you're going to spend that kind of money, why weren't you in the portal getting Sam Hartman or something? Like, that would have served you much better and, given you a better chance to save your job, because that's the whole thing here. Say he picks Missouri and Missouri tanks it this year. What does that mean? Like, what does that do for the whole thing? So if I'm OU and he picks Georgia, oh, crap, that's a real problem. If he picks Missouri, I'm not hanging up the phone. I'm doing the same thing I've done. We're recruiting you just like we did. We're going to stay on the phone. We want you to come down. That's all going to work just like it has. So we'll see. But if you made me pick this minute, I think I'd pick Oklahoma. But I've got this bad feeling like I'm going to flip my pick to Missouri here before long, just because, again, a number like I'm hearing, it's just really, really hard for a high school kid to say no to that.
It's amazing.
With Kate,
it's amazing. 700. I mean, I don't know if we want to get into this conversation. Is one defensive lineman, is he worth that? Is that like
no?
Okay,
because you could get.
He might be
you
worth
could get
it to
two or three really good ones for that price.
He might be worth it to a team that is already good. I
right.
mean, like,
yes, exactly.
But yeah, when you have so many other problems, it's like when who was the Williams, the defensive tackle from Alabama that the Jets took with their first pick.
Quinnen
Williams, yeah. Like, he was drafted to a bad Jets team, and I know that you have to do that in the NFL. You have to draft great defensive linemen when you have the chance. But it's like it didn't make them better immediately. Now it's paying off because they built a team around him and they got Aaron Rodgers. Sorry, Bob. I know you probably still hate him. Can we get an F out of you for that one? Nah. Aaron Rodgers, he's not Isaiah Thomas. He doesn't deserve F-bombs like Isaiah Thomas.
That's adult Bob. That's not worth childhood Bob still. Yep.
Okay. Anyway, but no, I mean, yeah, you're right. To pay that much for one single defensive lineman when your team's not good, no general manager would do that.
It's crazy.
Missouri needs a general manager, apparently.
And I guess the conversation would be like the next step is, what's the difference in, I'm just throwing numbers out there, 550 and 750. Like, if you're going to be paying 550, you might as well go 750 if you really thought that that's what he wants or
but here's the
that's
thing,
what he
too,
needs.
like you mentioned it, like that puts the target on Eli Drinkwitz's back.
Sure.
Yep.
100%.
If you're paying that much money to get players and you're still not competing in the SEC, you're gonna get fired.
Sure. And we Josh, Kerry and I kind of cooked this up yesterday. Like Missouri definitely has some Texas A&M vibes. They're like a Texas A&M light that I don't know. I think the fan base kind of, I mean, they're insane, obviously, but it seems like it's a lot.
And it's one of those things where it's not just, I mean, obviously, yeah, it puts a big ass bullseye on Drinkwitz. It also puts a big ass bullseye on those two kids.
Sure.
Like, you're going to come in and save us? I've been here for 3 years sweating my ass off working to make this. And now this little freshman who's never played a snap of football is making more than this entire locker room combined. Like, nope. I mean, that's a recipe for disaster.
He'd be the second highest paid person probably on staff outside of Eli Drinkwitz.
But I think they've gotten used to it because like that's how they kept Luther Burden around.
Yeah, I was gonna say
sure.
I don't know what Burden's price.
Where does Missouri get the money? Who's
we
their
were
booster?
looking this up yesterday. Like the ex-wife of Jeffrey Lurie.
Yeah, and she's a Walton.
She's a Walton.
I think there's a lot of Walmart money back up into Missouri, and then I'm sure that in St. Louis, I mean,
to lay off a lot of greeters.
There's a lot of people.
Maybe Eli Letterman, Missouri grad.
Well,
he could be.
And Kerry, something you brought up that's interesting that I never really thought about before. You're talking about Missouri needing a general manager. That general manager is going to know that if Eli gets fired, he's gone too. It's not like the NFL where the general manager did the firing and now we'll bring in our own guy and build this roster the way the way that fits both of us. So it's in his best interest to just be like, nope, spend whatever you need to, because he's in the same boat with Eli Drinkwitz. There's no separation, of those two entities.
Right, yeah.
He's just,
there's no checks and balances.
Exactly. Yeah. And so I think that's an interesting thought is, should someone like that be an athletic department employee rather than a football department employee? And I mean, it would be tough to make that work because the coaches have so much power in the hiring and firing. But I guess I'd never really stopped to think about it along those lines. But yeah, with Nwaneri, I mean, again, if it's Missouri, we'll
why.
see where that goes.
You know why.
Yeah. I know there's going to be some Missouri fans who are like, oh, he's being a homer. The Missouri sources I talked to would pretty much tell you the same if they got a few beers in them. Like that, they know what it's the same reason that Luther Burden picked Missouri.
Josh,
like,
is he
we
Neon
think Burden
Boudreaux?
picked Missouri on merit?
Josh.
Yeah, re-ask your question.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Is he Neon Boudreaux from Blue Chips, where he's not even asking for it and it's just being given to him?
I think there's some of that. I've never gotten the impression that he was a kid with his hand out. Like, and I don't think OU would be as hard after him as they have been if he was. But at the same time, he's so freaking good. He's the number one player in the country. He's from the state of Missouri. There's a lot that makes him very important to Missouri, and I'm sure they see him as a lifeline. But again, if you want to spend those kind of numbers, God, go get you 3 really good defensive linemen. Like, go do it that way. One defensive lineman's not going to cure your problem. Like, I don't know. It all seems so foolish to me. But I know you asked about Caden Durham as well. For those that don't know, I flipped my pick from Caden Durham from a long-time pick of Oklahoma to LSU following his visit to their kind of pool barbecue event over the weekend. As the week has gone on, it has gotten back to where I'm like, maybe I shouldn't have done that. Like, it is. Oh. OU is clearly not giving up this fight. They are going to keep battling. I know I put in a story that there was some conversation of, maybe OU uses that scholarship towards Andy Bass. And I still think that's possible. But I wonder if Andy Bass, based on some things I've heard, and I may have this in Scoop on Friday, OU has a pretty interesting opportunity with him to have a scholarship player that won't count towards the scholarships. And I've been trying to check and make sure this is all valid, like the way they could work the way that I'm told it would. Because it's a scenario I haven't heard really before, so it's kind of interesting.
And give us an update on Andy Bass, exactly who he is, all that stuff.
Yeah, sorry. Andy Bass, kind of athlete from Heritage Hall, a guy that released his top 3, I think, Monday night, something like that. That was Oklahoma, Syracuse, and Kansas State. Syracuse and Kansas State, to my knowledge, are full normal scholarship offers. Oklahoma, as it stands, is kind of like Bergen Kaiser that we talked about earlier, an NIL preferred walk-on type of deal. I think that could change, and I know when they made the offer to him after his showing at one of OU's camps in the summer, I think it was the June 13th camp, they told him, like, right now, this, it's the NIL type of situation, but maybe something opens up down the road, we'd like it to, and then we'll get you on scholarship. So I think that's possible, but again, I'm not sure even that is going to be necessary because he's kind of a unique scenario for a few reasons. But anyway, with Durham, I just feel like there is such an element to him, and I know Mike Hell talked about it with Eddie and Bob. Caden Durham has some troll in him. Like there is some absolute want to throw people off the scent, and he goes to OU's the party at the Palace on June 16th. Then he goes to LSU, I believe, the next weekend, and has since gone to A&M, and then also went back to LSU again last weekend and was there for like 2 or 3 days. He was there for quite a while. It's a pretty elaborate troll if that's what he's doing, and hats off to him. I get it. These kids love to have fun with that stuff, and that's fine. I got no problem with it. But it's pretty elaborate and pretty damn expensive if that's what he's doing. But at the same time, I just hear Oklahoma's like right there in the thick of this thing, and him, just doing some of the things he's doing. And I know the relationship he has with Michael and David Stone and all these other guys. And now the rumor is Colin Simmons is leaning back to Texas. If that's the case, and that was what a lot of people thought was going to take him to LSU. He and Colin were going to go together. There's not a lot of obvious connection to him and LSU other than obviously the track program. But somebody brought up, and it's a good point, Caden Durham's like a 10.5 100-meter guy, lightning fast. I mean, that's crazy fast on any football field in the country. In track, that's not scary.
He could
that's
probably
not
run for Somalia.
Lightning fast. Huh?
He could run for Somalia.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's not.
I don't know. That video's gone viral, so that's a
I
maybe an inside
understood
joke.
the reference.
I
didn't get the reference at all. Sorry.
The president of the Somalian national whatever sent his niece to run the 100 against world-class athletes at like the World Juniors or something.
She was terrible.
It's one of the best videos of all time.
I have to find this now.
The other women finish, and she's not even like halfway.
Carrie, they like the camera pans. She ran a 21:8300.
Yeah.
Just to give you an idea.
That sound is all of us.
21:83.
Yeah.
Oh my
Yeah.
God.
She's like,
you know how,
she looks like she's jogging.
At the beginning of every track and field event, they do like the intros to like it's like a Saturday Night Live skit when they get to her, and God bless her, but she doesn't belong. We'll just put it that way. It's a pretty fun. Sorry, I thought more people had seen the video. Continue on.
I'm watching it now.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, it's amazing.
Oh.
It had like 50,000 retweets on Twitter.
Is it a TikTok or is it?
It's all over Twitter. Barstool tweeted it out yesterday.
I was going to say I just
perfect.
I searched Somalia track and it came up.
It's perfect. But yeah, like as you were saying, 10.5 track speed. That's obviously a little bit different than probably what LSU's looking for, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, like you compare that to the kid from Houston a couple years ago that everybody the big white kid. Let's just be honest.
The kid that went to Georgia.
Yeah, he was running like 10 flats.
Man, he was crazy.
And now he can't even make the finals in some track events. So, like,
Matthew Bolden.
There is, again, I get that they're selling him on the track thing, but that's a secondary thing, no matter how much people want to make it into something else. So I don't know. It is. We'll see. But I think with Durham, in both these races, it's very tight. I don't think either of the two answers would surprise me. Georgia, in Winery's case, would be a mild surprise at this point, but I wouldn't be. I mean, it's Georgia. I'm not going to be bowled over by that.
Could you get in a situation where he just finds making the decision between Oklahoma and Missouri is too bad, and he just uses Georgia as a way to get out of it?
It's possible, but I can say the things that the proximity to home has come up a lot. I've heard in his recruitment, and that obviously Georgia's farther away than either of his other two options, and Georgia's NIL is nowhere near Oklahoma's. So he's going to be taking several steps back. It's interesting. Like I said, I haven't put this on the board. People are going to be mad as hell that I talked about this in the podcast, but it is. I feel like about a week ago I was like 60-40 OU, and I feel like I'm about 50-50 right now. Like it's getting real coin flip for me.
As for the rest of 2024, I mean the month of I guess the rest of the month of August, it's going to be obviously kind of interesting with what happens with Winery. You got David Stone out there.
And it's a dead period.
I don't want to say like
month.
have your thoughts changed on David Stone, because I think it's pretty repetitive where everything is at right now. Obviously, the Michael Patterson McDonald stuff is current and it's new, and he's going to be working on him to join the class. But outside of that, Josh, 2024, everything feels like it's kind of slowed down a little bit.
It has to a degree. I mean, you're going to have, I mentioned Josh Iasosa on August 14th. If it goes down the way I'm talking about it, Josh Iasosa has announced his announcement, Williams Winery, and then there's another guy or two that I haven't quite put dates on it that are throwing around that day as well. So there's a lot of possible activity. I've got on my list right now 7 players that I think will be done before the end of August, most of which I would pick Oklahoma with right now. So there is there's a lot to come, and then you immediately turn around in early September with Braden Platt and Nigel Smith. So 2024 is slowed down a little bit just because, I mean, you look at where they are in the class. You're getting into numbers. Like there's 17 guys, and we knew it would play this way, that they'd be real busy in June, July, and August, and then by the time September rolled around, I mean, you're finishing out maybe final 3-4 pieces. I mean, like unless they miss on a lot more guys than I expect them to, I don't think you're going to see a lot of chaos and a lot of new offers. Now, I think you're seeing Oklahoma taking a look at some defensive backs. I've seen some of that. I'm hearing some word like that where they are looking at some guys around Texas largely, but there's some others nationally where I've talked to a few of the guys, and it's more of like OU's kind of monitoring them from what I can pick up. But they're going to avoid the thing that I mocked USC for after the Taylor Tatum thing. They're not going to get caught not with a ready backup option. They know what they're looking for. They know who they're trying to track down. And if they don't feel good about a guy, then they'll make a move toward another one and just keep going forward. So they have a pretty clear plan in place, which I think should probably bring some ease to OU fans. That, again, I know you want to get the plan A guys every time, and obviously that's important, but it's also important to have those relationships cultivated because you're not always going to get plan A.
And Josh, Sooners under the stars brought about 2 2025 commitments so far.
Let's we'll get to that because we're an hour in and we have much more to go still. I want to tell you guys, Dead Soxy. Go check them out, deadsoxy.com. They've just released all new Crimson socks. So they're really cool. I'm just getting my first look at them now. They've got the new team colorways released in the Crimson. They've got 4 packs available. They've even got an 8-pack. If you want to get every single new sock that they've released, get you ready for game days. They're very cool. Plus, they've got the 8-bit Maker Bayfield still. They've got the wagon socks, which I have both of those. My best friend out in California, Clifton, he just made a big Dead Soxy order. He sent me a picture of his Maker Bayfields on today. And it's nice that someone can still have football out in San Francisco. So that's because he grew up in Oklahoma. So where they really are going to still play football. both in the Big 12, in two different Power 5 conferences. They might not have a single Power 5 conference out west before this is all said and done. But go represent. Go get your crimson colorways. All the new styles are in. I really like these crimson marls. The crimson vertical stripe is very cool. Dead Soxy, I demand that you send everyone in the office these. I demand it. I'm gonna make a phone call after the pod. Go check them out. Really cool. Use that promo code SCOOP. You'll get 25% off your entire order, even sale items. So if you want to get the Crimson 4-pack that's on sale for almost $30 off, you get 25% off more of that too. So go check them out. DeadSoxy.com. Great sponsors. Don't forget the no-shows as well. Crucial in this 100-degree heat. DeadSoxy.com. DeadSoxy.com. Use that promo code SCOOP. You'll get 25% off your entire order. And as always, stay Soxy. And I will now allow you to talk about Sooners Under the Stars.
Rapid fire, Josh. Kamori Moore. Elijah Thomas, go.
Kamori Moore, obviously, that's a big one for Oklahoma. Continuing that Lee Summit North connection. Follows Caden Green, Williams Winery we've already talked about, and then obviously Isaiah Mosey in his class in 2025, the wide receiver offer. So I think it's a good win for Oklahoma. You stack back-to-back kind of nose tackles with Jaden Jackson in 2024 and now Kamari Moore in 2025. I think you're starting to build that kind of athletic, physical defensive tackle that nose tackle that Oklahoma really wants. So Moore will be interesting because unlike Jaden Jackson, who I think is absolutely a pure nose, Moore I think has some flexibility, could move back and forth a little bit. So that's a good win for Oklahoma. Elijah Thomas, guys, the more I watch him, there's some CeeDee Lamb in there. I almost put that in my comparison for his commitment breakdown. And I was like, that's not fair. Like that's too much to ask of a young guy that really at this point hasn't had to face elite athletes week in and week out. And we don't know how he'll respond to that. But, I mean, say he got into the Army game or the Under Armour game and went down there and just lit it up. I would feel comfortable saying, like, this guy is going to be an All-American someday. Like, I think he is that gifted and that talented and is just scratching the surface of what he can be. He is so explosive. His acceleration is not normal. You watch him when he gets outside. People will tell me, oh, it's because he's playing slower guys. No. I've watched people play slower guys that don't outrun people like that. I mean, once he hits the corner, it's over. Like, I don't care if he was in 6A. Like, he is just exceptionally twitchy and looks to be one of those guys that's a little faster with the football in his hands. Like, it's just smooth and easy for him. Has a huge catch radius. I think I need to ask him to verify, but, I mean, I want to say he's at, like, 6'1", and I would guess his like wingspan is probably 6'6", 6'7". I mean, he is very long and just catches everything. Like he really, again, it's a testament to how good Kevin Sperry is and CJ Nixon is that there's even a conversation of who the number one guy in the state of Oklahoma is, because Elijah Thomas in 9 years out of 10 would be the number one guy in the state, and I don't even know it'd be that close.
Grayson Harris, now Thomas, that a wake-up call for any of those other 2025 receivers at this point? I've mentioned Jaden Nickens a few times in here. I don't think it's coincidental because this is what we talk about, guys. When you get a little momentum going, and Emmett Jones, it does not take long talking to him and being around him to know why he's so damn good and so respected. Like, he knows what he's doing. I mean, it does. And people say, "Oh, he's pressuring the kids." No, he's not. Hey, man, we're going to take 4 in the 25 class. We've already got 2 commitments. I'm feeling pretty good about 3 or 4 of you guys, and whichever of the first 2 of you to come or the first 2 I'm taking. And that's not pressure. That's just an honest statement of the situation. And I think what's interesting is when you get into does he take an extra guy if it's DeCorian Moore? Probably. Does he take an extra guy if it's Andrew Marsh? Probably. But I don't think the gap between most of these guys is that big. Like, I think he's got 7 or 8 guys that he sees. They're all different types of players, but in their potential and their talent level, I don't think there's that big of a gap. Like, I think these are high-end guys. I mean,
people can say, like I said, Elijah Thomas doesn't play against anybody. Elijah Thomas had an Alabama offer. Like, that didn't happen by accident. Like, they know he is a special talent, even if I think right now in On3, he's like a top 120 guy. But if he can get in front of some other people, he'll move. Like, people will see how unique he is. But yeah, like I said, I love what they're doing at receiver. I think you are starting to see a lot of momentum on the offensive line. They're doing a really nice job there. Some of my questions in that class are really defensive, which is I think will take care of itself because that staff they've got a really good group of defensive recruiters. But I don't see some of the obvious guys that I've seen in years past, like where you said, okay, yeah, David Stone's going to be a difference maker that they need to land. Alex Shieldknight from Wagner is an in-state offer. They clearly want him. He was an under the stars. Gus Cordova from Lake Travis is a guy that I've already got a prediction in for. I think Oklahoma is impossible to beat, is really strong, but it's not far off. Like there's a lot of connection there. And I have, let's put it this way, I have Lake Travis on my schedule this year. Eddie's probably going to come down. We won't see him the rest of the weekend. But yeah, so there's a lot of potential for this defensive class to get there. There's a lot of guys I like for them, but I just don't see some of the elite names just yet that Oklahoma's kind of being mentioned with.
It would seem like, because everything's going so well, there does feel like there's a lot of momentum on the recruiting trail. The last thing that they have to do is go win football games now. And, camp starts tomorrow. If we want to start getting into a little bit of the everything that was yesterday from Media Day and all that kind of stuff.
I don't know if we want to infringe on you and George's bromance podcast yesterday.
It was a little bit longer than we thought it was going to go.
Eddie just kept asking questions.
It was
going to
be
keep going.
It was supposed to be a 10-minute interview. And turned it 40 minutes
40.
later. I was like, where the hell are those
I
guys?
thought it was great.
Yeah, it was good. It was good.
You did a fine job.
We got into a lot. And, I think that coming out of Media Day yesterday.
By the way, go to our YouTube channel, SoonerScoop.
It is very interesting just as far as some of the stuff that was said. When you talk about the wide receiver room, when you talk about, all the way down to, something that we hit on at the end of the show was the quarterback and Dylan Gabriel.
I'll tell you something interesting, top of my mind, a conversation that I was thinking when you were talking about Grayson Harris. I was talking to Todd Bates, and I'm talking about Grayson Halton now, but you were talking about the recruit, yes. Grayson Harris. And Grayson was the thing that hit me. Bob, I know what I'm talking about, all right? So I was asking Todd Bates about Grayson Halton, and I said, where is he right? Because he was talking about Laulu and gaining the weight and, what an example he's been in the locker room for everybody. And I was like, well, what about Grayson Halton? Like, he had showed a lot of flashes last year. Could he be a dude for you? And he kind of went into some stuff about, still needing to mature and things like that. Like, I don't know if it was so much, that he's been screwing around or anything like that, but maybe it was just a coach knowing he's a young guy and he wants to push him more. But outside of that, he was very complimentary. He just he wasn't willing to call him a finished product, I think is mostly what I took from that.
Yeah, and it's interesting because that group is going to be fun to watch because they do have a lot more bodies there interior on the interior defensive line. And Todd Bates was talking about, I don't know if you were ever there for this, Kerry, but he was talking about he wants to have it be a 6-man rotation. And so in my head, I'm thinking, okay, so Jordan Kelly, Isaiah Coe, Terry, Halton,
Gilliam,
Lacey, Gilliam, Sears.
Yeah, we haven't.
Like, and the list
Gilliam's just
like,
kind of been lost in the cracks a little bit.
Todd gave me a really good answer about Kelvin that I'll transcribe later. Made me feel better about where he's at.
Phil Paya. I mean, you're talking about they've got some options there. I think the ones that you can definitely count on are Jordan Kelly, Isaiah Coe, Terry, and then I would probably throw Halton into that because I thought he was pretty impressive last year as a freshman, and he's put on the amount of weight that he has, and that was another emphasis. Todd Bates talked about, having multiple 300-pounders,
right, yeah.
And the amount of weight that they put on in the offseason and why that was not big just for this year, but SEC. So they're already thinking about that. But that defensive line group is definitely going to be an interesting one, I think.
And it seems like it's somewhat talented. I mean, you talk about somebody like a DeJoun Terry who, we talked to yesterday. He is a massive human. a massive human. And if you could pair him against Isaiah Coe and then Rondell Bothroyd or Mason Thomas or, whoever, Trace Ford, doesn't really matter to me on the defensive end, that's a defensive line that I feel like you can work with a little bit.
Yeah, that's the biggest question, isn't it, though? I mean, it's guys that we either don't know about or guys that haven't been as productive as you would want, Isaiah Coe, Jordan Kelly. We've been saying, can these guys make a leap? And we haven't seen the leap. Is it there? Is it possible? And I don't know. I mean, I look at the guys that can, pay a guy. I have no idea about this guy. I mean,
ACL, trying to come back.
Yeah.
28 years old or whatever.
Are you just kind of blowing smoke saying this is the best you've ever felt?
I mean, Terry seems like, he's the most likely guy that could make. Jacob Lacey being out.
Blood clots, and now that was confirmed, where's that all stand?
So I'm the most skeptical about that position for sure.
I would agree, but at the same, I guess do you want to look at it glass half full or glass half empty and saying that
really not trying to do a doom pod?
Right? No, I'm just saying that it depends on which way you want to go. And, you do have to fall back on this idea that, maybe outside of somebody like a Rondell Bothroyd and Trace Ford, there's a reason why DeJoun Terry is transferring, right? He wasn't going to be an All-American SEC, all first-team SEC at Tennessee, or at least I don't think so.
Yeah.
So, you just kind of have to wade those waters, and it's going to be interesting over the next 30 days as they open camp to kind of see how this thing comes together. Because, Brent said it yesterday. They might have a different front seven for game one against Arkansas State outside of Danny Stutzman than they did all year last year. And, when you look at how they played a year ago, I think it's a good thing. But to sit here and say that it's just automatically going to cure everything, you're probably being a little naive as well.
Now, George, did you get time to spend with the guy that you're getting the most heat for putting in the starting lineup?
Connor Neer?
Yes.
Yes. Before I get to Connor Neer, I just quickly looked up. They had 3 300-pounders last year on the defensive line. And one of them was Alton Tarver, who I don't think he played.
No.
And then this year they have 5. So obviously an improvement up front, got a lot bigger. But, yeah, I spent a good amount of time with Connor Neer. That dude, he was one of the more impressive interviews yesterday, I thought.
He looks like a football player.
He looks like he's got the size. I think the concern with him is what does he look sideline to sideline and speed-wise. But one thing that everybody says about him, and I've talked to a few coaches at Ferris State, is just his football IQ. And his instincts. And so I think that's something.
You just randomly called coaches at Ferris State and say, hey.
I did. And I just said, hey, what's the deal with this guy?
Who is this guy?
And
it's called reporting, folks.
They raved about him. And there's no hard feelings. You would think that maybe they would be upset. They're like, no, we knew he could go play at a bigger program, in the Power 5. And so, they're excited about him. And I think he's a guy that, they said that he's one of the smarter guys. And you think about Brent, right? And he's a guy that wants somebody that's going to go out there and understand the defense and not make those mistakes. And so I think he also has got a chip on his shoulder because I asked him straight up. I was just like, there's a lot of people that think that I have some people walking in.
Ariel.
Some people just use our lobby to just walk through sometimes.
Yeah,
or our reception room.
They should buy a T-shirt. But anyways, what did I? Oh, I asked him straight up. A lot of people from the outside say Ferris State Division II. What's he doing at Oklahoma? Does that motivate you in any way or anything? He's like, well, I think anybody that plays at Oklahoma has something to prove. So yeah, I definitely feel like I have something to prove. So I think he's kind of embracing. I think he's definitely seen the amount of hate. I mean, he's also talked about the amount of tension on you. He's like, I can't believe how many people are here at Media Day interviewing me and things like that. So I think it's an eye-opening experience for him. I mean, he talked about 20,000 people is the most he's ever played in front of. Mm-hmm. So that's going to be different for him. But I don't know. We'll see. There was a lot of talk about Kanik yesterday too. It sounds like Brent feels really good about the progress that he's made.
I'm kind of rooting for Connor Neer to be a starter because that'll make Paul Feinbaum lose his mind and say this team is not SEC ready. They've got a Division II starter.
I want him to start so I can flip everybody else off on the board because they're
sure. Well, don't do that.
No. But, they all called me crazy. And I'm like, hey, man, I don't know. That's what Brent loves the guy.
This is something, though, that's been growing almost since day one when he signed or, committed, whatever you want to call it, out of the transfer portal, was the fact that they weren't bringing him in just to be a placeholder.
Right.
I mean, they're bringing him in to be somebody that can be a difference maker. And you look at every one of those transfers, and George, you wrote about this yesterday. There is a plan for all these guys, whether it be a Troy Everett, who I thought was lovely to talk to yesterday, or a Connor Neer, or a DeJoun Terry, or a Rondell Bothroyd. The list goes on and on. Even somebody like a Luke Elzinga that they brought in for the punting job, he's named to the Ray Guy Award today. So watch list. So they have to have these guys be difference makers. They have to have the light come on. There can't be any, he's trying to understand the defense, that kind of stuff.
Yep.
And I think that's going to be the most interesting thing, is just how that goes. But it does seem like they're going after football players. And I think if there's anything that we can say about this staff and their resume, Brent Venables can find a football player.
Yeah.
I'm not worried about that.
Well, go watch Connor Neer's tape. I don't know if anybody's gone and watched. I went and watched his tape. The dude can play some football. You can see him, the way that he sees the game. And I just looked it up. He's the exact same size as Jaren Kanak. Jaren Kanak's 6'2", 232. Connor Neer's 6'1", 232. So he definitely doesn't lack the size. Also, I know a lot of people point to his stats weren't very good last year. The first 6 games he played outside linebacker. They moved to middle linebacker, and his stats went way up. And so that's part of why his stats were a little bit different. But I think he's going to play. And I think you're going to see a rotation there. But, I mean, also, look at last year. They didn't have anybody to back up Agwebu and Danny Stutzman. They didn't have
That's
anybody.
like the number one thing, and I know that you're going to write about it this weekend, but and it's been something that they talked about at the coaches luncheon last week that we went to, George. There were so many players that were playing over 100 snaps in the game, and maybe it doesn't matter in the first, second, third week, but when you start piling up injuries and just everything that comes with a season, you can't be doing that. You cannot be doing that and playing guys 100 snaps a game. It just can't.
It's not
happen.
just physically,
Right.
mentally.
Well, some of them might just be pussies, but No,
Well, I mean,
you're
but it
right.
comes
You're
down
right.
to
Though,
all
Bob.
the close losses. I mean, defense not being able to get off the field at
Sure.
the end of games. I mean,
Sure.
the Baylor game, West Virginia.
They were
I mean,
awful in the fourth quarter
yeah,
in those games.
I mean, it's you need to have depth in order to be able to go out there and play your best football
100%.
when it matters the most.
100%. And
And it would be shocking to me if Brent, after spending a year and 2 recruiting sessions, to not put together a capable linebacking core. It would be shocking.
yeah,
And
I'll
I know
be
TD
slamming
Roof,
my hand on the panic button if that happens.
I know TD Roof going down certainly hurt a lot last year, but it seems like they're ready to finally kind of be good at that position.
Sure. And I think that when you get out of that front seven,
And we're not even talking about McCullough and what he could bring to the defense.
Sure. And there were some interesting questions asked to Miguel Chavis about what he's going to do with him at defensive end. But it does seem like, and we should say, we talked about it on the YouTube show last night, George and Bob, and it just, yesterday was for all the younger guys. That's why we didn't talk to
Correct.
Deshaun McCullough.
Yep.
We didn't talk to Danny. We didn't talk to Dylan Gabriel. The list goes on and on of returning guys.
Brent knows that's going to come.
Sure.
I was going to ask, did you guys get a chance to speak with some of the receivers? Any guys that I know Nick Anderson was out there, Petaway was out there.
I think Brennan Thompson had some interesting things to say.
Yeah,
I mean,
he's really
just about
good.
People were expecting kind of like Texas was terrible. I hated it, and
Very appreciative of Texas.
I think at the end of the day, he showed up in Austin, and it just wasn't him. He didn't vibe with it. A kid coming from the Panhandle of West Texas, it just was different for him. And I think that getting to Norman has helped.
Well, I think Emmett Jones, and we can get into Emmett
Sure.
Jones because I thought he was really impressive
awesome.
yesterday. But I think that he played a huge role in that. It sounds like they had a really close relationship, and I mean, you were seeing that on the recruiting trail. Now he's building very genuine relationships. But that room in general, it just feels like, and we've talked about it a million times, but there's just so many unproven guys. But it feels like Brennan Thompson's a guy that they're maybe counting on to contribute.
I mean, he and Andrell Anthony, to me, are the 2 biggest guys that could turn things around the fastest.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I mean, we saw Andrell in the spring game. Nobody really threw the ball that well down the field. I mean, Blake Smith was a hero with one hand. I mean, like that was one of the bigger plays. But like Drake Stoops, Gavin Freeman, Jalil Farouk. I mean, I think we know. I'm not even sure about Austin Stogner. I mean, when I talked to Joe John yesterday, he made every question almost about Stogner. So I mean, he's really trying to rebuild his confidence because he had that staph infection when he was here. He missed an entire year, but only played in that Cotton Bowl game. At the end, and he was super skinny. Remember in that game, like you saw him, you're like, is that really Austin Stogner? Then he goes to South Carolina. He plays with a quarterback that's just average. I'm sorry, I'm always going to take my little shot. But his confidence needs to be rebuilt, and Joe John talked about that. So I don't know how big a factor he's going to be at tight end.
And it's going to be scary
Can he get open,
if
like,
he's not, because
on a regular basis.
Caden Helms is still hurt. Jason Llewellyn is still hurt. If Stogner can't bring it, that's going to be a very
could have had Jake Roberts. Could have had Jake Roberts.
Yep.
Well, and it comes down to also, Nick Anderson, like you said, we talked to him yesterday. I liked the little bit that we saw from him in the bowl game, but he barely played last year. And Jaden Gibson, his biggest contribution has come in a spring game 2 years ago with a quarterback that never even played.
I think Nick Anderson can be really good. He's just got to be healthy.
Yeah.
And it sounded like he is as healthy as he's ever been. So can he keep that up through fall
camp?
camp?
How thin he is?
I mean, not really, because you see him out there and he looks thin. So I wasn't super surprised. I mean, I don't know what.
Just in person,
what does he weigh, I wonder?
I don't know.
Let me look. I have the roster pulled up.
I actually thought he looked bigger than I was expecting.
I was about to say, I thought he looked like he was a little bit more filled out than he was in the spring.
Skinny last year.
Yeah, I guess
209.
Okay. I mean,
What was he last?
6'2"?
6'4".
Yeah, he's a big kid. The whole thing is the wide receiver position is super interesting, and I think right now I'm kind of banking on the idea that Emmett Jones is going to be able to develop these guys a little bit. Mm-hmm. That's his track record.
The other thing,
his resume would tell you that it does.
Nick Anderson's put on 10 pounds, by the way.
What does Dylan do? I mean, that's the biggest thing. Like,
Sure.
does he fall in love with? We know he's going to trust Jalil Farouk. We
Sure.
know he's going to trust Drake. Like, he's got to build that with Gavin. He's got to build that with Stogner. He's got to build that with Anthony or Anderson or whoever we're talking about.
Yeah.
Thompson. I mean,
yeah, and it has to come together fast.
Yep.
I think that's the biggest thing coming out of camp is they have to come out playing really good football and moving. Depending, whoever they may be playing, it's almost imperative that they are, because if they don't, we've been around this before. Like, people are going to turn on it.
Yeah, I will say, as much as there's concern for the receiver room, I feel very confident that the running game is going to be pretty good. Like, I feel like they're going to run the ball really well. I think they feel really good about the running backs they have. I thought it was interesting that, Caleb Hicks has had the best summer of a freshman that DeMarco Murray's ever seen, I think was the quote he said.
Now, I did not get over there with Bill because when he sat down, he's like, okay, let's go.
Yeah.
Like, it was
He was in a good mood.
I was like, okay, I'm going to go. Emmett
He was
Jones
good.
is so fun. I'm going to go talk to him.
Real quick before we move on to offensive line, because I do want to talk about some stuff over there. I came across some summer numbers.
Okay.
Fastest acceleration,
Gavin.
Fastest deceleration, which I didn't even know that they kept.
Farouk.
Gavin.
Okay, these are all going to be Gavin.
He had the fastest acceleration, fastest deceleration, fastest lateral, fastest 10-yard.
Wow.
I mean, he had an unbelievable summer.
Yeah.
And it's obvious that when he turns the corner, and I think that there is a little bit of a legend there that when you score on your first touch in your career as a walk-on, it's always going to kind of follow you. I think it's just about him kind of becoming comfortable of being a guy.
Can I say something at the threat of Jason Freeman possibly kicking my ass?
I don't know.
To me, Gavin looks like a dirty Ryan Gosling.
I think that's a compliment.
Yeah.
I love
Yeah,
Ryan
I
Gosling.
don't think anyone's going to be mad about that.
Well, I don't know with Jason. I mean, he gets mad at me and SoonerScoop every once in a while. And I don't know. I guess I don't really know why.
You can field that phone call.
I'll do it. I'll tell Jason I was there at TCU, cheering him on.
What's a realistic
in the
expectation
day.
though for Gavin? Because obviously, I think that, he got a ton of praise yesterday, put a lot of pressure on him. I feel like to be a guy, but is it safe to say 400, 500 receiving yards, 5 touchdowns. Like, what's the realistic?
I just don't know what what
did
those
we
numbers
look at
look
last
like.
year? Like the leading receiver was 1,300 last year.
Yes,
Marvin Mims.
He was the leading receiver the last 3 years. But I feel like, Drake Stoops. We talk about Drake. I don't think his stats were just
No, they weren't.
No,
crazy
they're not.
great.
No.
And that's who he's behind. I would assume they're
But he's also the big play guy. Like,
Yeah.
I know when Gavin got in, he did outstanding things. It just wasn't very much. But, like, he's going to be the guy that Dylan goes to on 3rd and 2.
Well, and I think that they're going to do some different things, and we saw it a little bit at the end of the year in the bowl game where they're going to have packages for him. And whether you incorporate a Jackson Arnold or whoever in a package, there's going to be certain things I think that they're going to be able to do. But all of that is contingent upon them being good up front, right? And I think that, it was really interesting hearing Jeff Levy talk about the offensive line yesterday, and he put out the, kind of like a quote unquote starters. You can believe it or you cannot believe it. It doesn't really matter to me. I think everybody knows how Bill works. He's going to find the right 5. For some reason, and George, we talked about this yesterday. I'd love to hear what you guys think. I almost feel more confident about what they have at the starting tackle positions as they're trying to replace Anton Harrison and Wanye Morris with Walter Rouse and Tyler Guyton. I just have questions on what they do inside. And, how does Troy Everett fit into that? It certainly feels like they want Savion Byrd to go win the job at left guard. And that's almost kind of like a coaching thing. That's why he wasn't really truly named yesterday as the quote-unquote starter going into camp. It just feels like they want him to go work his ass off over the next month and win that job. No questions about it. And then you have a left guard and a left tackle in Walter Rouse and Savion Byrd.
Yeah.
How does Jake Taylor fit into that? Like, they have bodies. Caleb Schaefer. I don't know. It's kind of weird. Can Troy Everett beat out Andrew Rain? What happens at right guard? Are they just dead set on starting Matwire?
sounds like it.
Josh,
he was mentioned as somebody that was a leader.
A leader by Brett. Yep.
Yeah. What do you think about the Savion Byrd angle, though? It almost feels like they just want him to go win the job.
Yeah, with Byrd, that just reeks of the old. Because I remember Bob doing this all the time when he would just, clearly put a bullseye on a guy and say, "You're either going to sink or swim," and that's what this feels like with Savion Byrd. Because I don't think there's any question that the ceiling of this offensive line is a lot higher with Savion Byrd on the field than the Everett kid, who is a good player, but is probably best served as a center. And I think that is the long-term plan for him. But obviously, Bill Beebo is going to be happy that he can provide some competition and push Savion Byrd. To me, I'm a little concerned that they're still having to resort to these things. Like, it feels like at some point the lights got to go on and say, now's the time, man. Like, go take this job and make it yours. Because I would say, with the exception of Tyler Guyton, of the guys I expect to start this year, he's easily the most talented player on that offensive line. And I don't know.
Was there, by the way, first question is, are you selling dishes out of your house? Second question, how much did rain come up yesterday? Sounds like somebody's packing dishes all the time at your house.
At my house?
Mm-hmm. Does anybody else hear that dish sound?
I hear
no.
nothing.
I can tell you what it is. It's my damn chair squeaking every time I move. So I need to. Yeah, I didn't know that you could pick up on that so well, but yeah, I can fix that. So I apologize to all the listeners that are as pissed off as Carrie is.
No, but how much did Raim come up talking to Bill yesterday? At all?
Not very, from what I remember and from what I was around.
Well,
very.
It was just also interesting. The offensive line, Levy lists it. And then 5 minutes later, we go to Bill, and he's like, there's a lot of competition. Yeah. And it's like, okay, so which one is it? And I think part of that's just Bill being Bill. But it's very clear. I didn't hear him talk about Raim, but he loves him some Troy Everett. I'll say that. He raved about Troy Everett.
Interesting.
And I thought I didn't get the chance to speak with Troy a whole lot, but listening to the audio back from what you guys got, he sounded pretty impressive.
He kind of, and I clearly not comparing the games, but he had a little bit of Ben Powers in him, I thought. Like, just the way that he kind of functions. You could see that, like, he's definitely a very smart player. Somebody that, wants to, he said it, ask a lot of questions. He said that he's leaned on Jacob Sexton a ton as far as, what happens here if I go here, or if the linebacker comes here, what do I need to do? That kind of stuff. So, I don't know. Bill brought it up that he was really impressed what he did against Texas A&M a year ago while he was at Appalachian State. So, it's almost kind of imperative that, like, we talk about this offense and, them improving. I just remember an offensive line that couldn't pick up a yard against Oklahoma State, like, unfortunately.
And how much of that, though, was also, like, I felt like, and we can get into this if we want, but just the scheme of rushing to the line and trying to rush up there and run a play. I feel like that was an issue at times because I don't think the offensive line was. I mean, they led the Big 12 in rushing last year, so they could run the ball. I just think at times the play calling, honestly, just was a little bit head scratching.
Yeah,
when it came to those situations.
Well, and I thought Lebby kind of owned up to that. Like he mentioned first down. He was asked the same thing about 3rd and 4th down and mentioned that they've got to be better on first down. And I think, talking to him on the side even, it's just like he gets it. Like, he's at Oklahoma. It wasn't good enough last year. He's really – and that was the thing, too, about, like, Brent and all the coaches, just talking about how much they put into the offseason to try and fix the things. They never really use the word fix, but just be better, to get better.
Well, and I think they're aware the pressure's on. I mean, even the little jab that the fan took at the coaches' luncheon that went viral about, are you going to score against Texas? And Lebby's like, well, if I don't, I'm not going to be here. I mean, like, they understand the pressure and the expectation that they have to go win this year.
It's one of those things, too, that it ultimately doesn't matter. But, Lebby being a quote-unquote OU guy, he gets it. Yeah. He understands what's going on around here. They have to be better offensively. And I think that there are some pieces in place, and when you get to that running back room, it's really exciting. Like Javonte Barnes and Gavin Sawchuk, what you saw in the bowl game, you can't base, what their careers are going to be based off one game, but there's a lot to like there. There's, and we've seen flashes of somebody like a Marcus Major, and then what you said about Caleb Hicks, it's rather exciting to see what he's done with that room. But, this whole thing has to come together.
Agreed.
Did you guys find it interesting at all that I think it was Brent, maybe it was Jeff that said that Arnold's trying to push for a role on this team, whatever that looks like. Mm-hmm. And I think then maybe one of the other also said, like, yeah, we're going to find ways to use him. I think maybe that was Jeff, and Brent said that Jackson's pushing for a role. I don't know. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how they use him, especially early in the year.
Well, I mean, Eddie and I talked about that. Like, it only helps Oklahoma if he gets on the field a little bit this year going into the SEC.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't want –
and let him run the offense.
Yeah, you don't want him going to the SEC, just completely raw. I mean, a complete rookie.
Well, I wonder if we see – I know last year in games there was moments, especially later in the season, it felt like that they would rotate everyone out except for Dylan. And I wonder –
complete line changes.
Yeah. I wonder if they do that this year and they – throw Jackson out there. I don't know. I can't hurt.
You just got to let him run the offense, not just hand the ball off and try to run the clock out.
I've said, because what we talked about earlier where Dylan's got to get comfortable with all these receivers, like, don't do it early. Let Dylan kind of find his place and prove himself and get comfortable with his new receivers. But then, when you feel like that's happening, then bring in Jackson.
Did you guys realize Dylan is only 2,874 yards away from being a top 10 all-time passer in college football?
It was one of those things when Jeff Lebby said it, I think everybody goes, what's he talking about? And then you look at the numbers, and it does make sense to a certain extent because of the numbers that he's put up.
And the offense he's in.
I think that's why they feel so comfortable about, him coming back and being the quarterback of this team is that he has played a ton of football. And, and he was good at portions of the season, particularly at the end of the year last year. Mm-hmm. It has to be more consistent, obviously. And the way that this offense goes, it's going to start with him.
I will say, being around him, like, he seems like, the weight of the world is off his shoulders a little bit.
He seems very comfortable with where he's at in, quote unquote, the latter stages of what is going to be his college career.
Yeah.
This is not the Doom Pod, right? We're not doing it now.
That's
next week.
All right. I'll hold off. Got it.
I saw Josh's comments on Dylan on the board chat, so I think I know where Josh stands.
I think there'll be some exploration about Plan Bs next week on the Doom Pod.
Yeah,
I'm assuming that's what you're referring to.
I don't know. Like
next week.
Yeah.
Next week we're already almost 2 hours in.
I will die on this hill, but it's just going back and logging all those games last year. There were so many drops.
Yeah.
So many drops. And I still think if they just win 2 more games last year, I know that this is revisionist history, but the narrative surrounding Gabriel, the narrative surrounding, I guess to a certain extent, the program, it's just so much different.
Yeah.
If you win 8 games last year, all of a sudden.
What was that game? It was raining in
West Virginia. Was it
West Virginia?
Yeah.
And Mims dropped a touchdown.
It was awful.
Then he went and put gloves on.
And we talked about Emmett Jones earlier.
Yeah.
I wonder what kind of effect can he have on that group fundamentally, because I think at times last year, and you heard it yesterday, Jeff Lebby said some of the things we're focusing on, route running detail. And I thought you go back and you watch the tape, the route running wasn't great last year. They dropped balls. They weren't in the places they were supposed to be. Can Emmett Jones, obviously we've seen what he's done on the recruiting trail, but can he be a guy that helps this team develop and be better fundamentally?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many things to, Jalil Farouk, does he get treated like a number one where he was successful because Marvin Mims was on the field and took away attention? Like, how does that affect
compared to
Drake
Percy
Stoops?
Harvin yesterday?
I know, it's crazy.
It's just like...
But that's the thing.
I
It's like
see it.
We know that he has a ton of athletic ability, and he has the ability to be like as good a receiver as Oklahoma's had come through here. But it's all potential at this point.
Yeah. And that's where I think you stop short of saying, like, okay, if there were some guys returning on the wide receiver position that had already like truly produced numbers that made you go, wow, it'd be a lot easier for me to get to 11-1, 10-2. Right now, it's just kind of, you look at the schedule, and they're going to be favored in a lot of football games this season. It just has to all come together. And, again, I think that's glass half full or glass half empty, whichever way you want to look at it.
Do they have a 1,000-yard receiver on this roster, do you think?
Yeah. Jalil Farouk.
Think so? Marvin Mims was 1,083 yards, so he barely got over 1,000.
He might have went over it against Seminoles.
I mean, the reason I say that about Farouk is he's a get-behind-the-defense type of guy.
Yeah.
And the more that becomes an option for Dylan Gabriel, he likes to throw the deep ball.
Yeah.
So he's going to be looking for it.
Farouk as a running back, like they tried to so many times.
They really don't need to.
If they just let him be a receiver.
Do they have a running back that can be a receiver a little bit in their offense? That can, line up in the backfield, split out, a la, DeMarco when he was here.
They didn't have a 1,000-yard receiver in 2020 or 2021. So I don't think they do currently. I mean, and they don't have to, but if they have a couple guys that can get to 600, 700, 800,
right. Well, we don't know what Emmett Jones's rotation is going to be either. The reason that Marvin was a 1,000-yard receiver is because LaDainian Tomlinson never rotated. Washington.
Well, it'd be sweet if LaDainian Tomlinson was on the staff. That'd be badass.
I'm getting confused between.
Didn't Emmett say yesterday? And Eddie, you might have been over there for this. He said that the way in a perfect world, he would like to every
4 deep.
Yeah, every 2. Well, and he said every 2-3 plays you'd rotate guys in.
And then that he wants at every single spot a 4 deep.
Yeah. So I mean, I think you are going to see a little bit more of a rotation this year than you did last year.
Well, guys, I talked about this when Lebby came in. You can go back and look at UCF and Ole Miss. He's never rotated a lot of receivers. Now, that maybe at UCF and Ole Miss, it's the same deal. He didn't feel like he had enough numbers. I don't know the answer, but there is a continuous thing where they don't rotate a lot of players. And you can go back. It wasn't just last year at Oklahoma. There is other data to say that that's something that he just doesn't do a lot. And I don't know if that's something he communicates to wide receivers coaches or if that's just coincidence. But at some point, at 3 different schools under 3 different head coaches, that doesn't feel like a coincidence to me. But last year, I just looked up the numbers. He had 5 receivers over 100 snaps, and then 5 that were like averaged about 40. For the whole season. So I don't know. I mean, and I think that does help the idea of a 1,000-yard receiver because you're going to be out there enough to do that. But I think the rotation thing is something Jeff Levy just doesn't do a lot of. That's just my impression.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to learn a lot about this season in play calling. Emmett Jones, the tight end position. Who's going? Are they going to have Javonte Barnes as their main running back, or are they going to split it between he and Sawchuk and see who comes out on top there? Like Marcus Majors, is he going to be a factor again? Like I want to say that his name was brought up by DeMarco yesterday without it even being prompted.
I asked him directly about Marcus, but it sounds like he likes him a lot. He likes having an older guy in the room, and it's just a matter of staying healthy.
Can you rely on him?
Yeah. And I mean, and what does his role look like? Because even I think Barnes or Sawchuk, those are your guys, but can Major be do like almost like a Trey Sermon role that he played in like 2018, where he comes in the fourth quarter,
a little bit of a closer.
Yeah, and he's a physical back. Can he be that guy? I don't know. I think he's, gotten better in pass pro. Is he a guy that can come in on third down, be a third down back? I don't know. But they've got options in the running back room. I'm just not concerned about running back right now.
All right. Another very long pod, but I think went pretty fast for me. So
we didn't even talk about conference realignment, which is happening as we speak.
Yeah, the whole Apple Plus deal. I mean, that's just.
Well, you see the new news that the Big Ten's basically going after Oregon and Washington and possibly Cal and Stanford. And Florida State is in a Board of Regents meeting right now talking about realignment.
Not getting left out.
Yeah.
Well, and did you see their comments with our Florida State site where he was like, "We're feel comfortable with the grant of rights. We can do this if we want to do it," kind of thing.
Yeah,
that was strong.
Andy Staples put out a tweet, I think it was yesterday, just kind of talking about, everybody goes to the grant of rights stuff and says, well, Clemson and Florida State would never pay that to get it out of the ACC. Mm-hmm. And it's almost kind of, you got to start thinking, is it worth that investment to get out of the ACC knowing that you would be left so far behind everybody else that you're recruiting around? Like, in the long run, are you actually losing that money anyway?
Are you dying a slow death?
Might as well pay it now. And, I think that
point.
If anybody has learned anything about conference realignment, it's you kind of got to stay ahead of that curve without knowing what the curve's going to be. And so, if the Big Ten goes to 18, how does the SEC respond to that? It's wild.
I don't know how much money is at Clemson compared to like a Florida State, though.
I have no idea.
Like, are they more on like an Oklahoma State level where they need a big donor?
Clemson?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
I mean, I know it's a small town, but I would imagine there's quite a bit of money.
But I got to think South Carolina has more resources than Clemson does in terms of donor involvement.
I really don't know. I mean, you have
no
Missouri
clue.
trying to pay $750,000 for somebody. Money's just, it's an object right now. It's not.
It just depends on who you got. I mean, OU seems to be doing pretty well too.
That's what that was Hunter Decker's thing. Just depends on who you got on the parlay card.
By the way, Eddie and I we're gonna finish off the rebuilding of the network. I just want to my final grievance of the day is what the is happening with batteries and the cost of batteries. It was like $17 to buy 2 9-volt batteries today.
It's insane.
Yeah.
Especially
Like,
when you have $2
children's
that
toys.
leave
Yeah, you have
walkie-talkies
kids with
on.
toys.
All
I mean,
the
my
children's toys. Yep.
Like, how have we not advanced past the battery as well? Like,
The
I guess-
only name that comes to mind is Joe Biden.
well, he wants to make everything electric, so he's evil incarnate. The car thing.
Well, I mean, my thought was, well, Elon has done it, so we're all on the same page here.
Yeah, and what did
Just
Eli
battery
use his
life
money to
improved
do?
everywhere.
Well, I mean, those are like batteries, like a AA battery, like just a shitty little battery that lasts for a week. I mean, like unless it's in a remote, it'll last forever. But how have we done? And I know they have like the lithium ones now, but it's like even the shitty ones cost. It's
fortune.
like I was telling George, like when I came in here, I used to have a Sam's Club membership, and the only reason I used it for was to buy AA batteries to
In
give
bulk,
to Eddie.
which is what I do.
Like I would go and get like what were those like 40 packs of AA batteries that give you? You just go through them all, and that was like $32. I mean, it's insane. $17 for 2 9-volt batteries. Nobody even uses 9-volt batteries.
Tell that to the toy company.
I feel so bad for you guys now all of a sudden. That'll be your next negotiation meeting, Bob, is just say, look, the batteries are getting too expensive. I need a raise. All right, that's going to do it. Unless anybody else has anything they want to shoot out there.
Nope.
I don't think so.
Did we break the record for longest pod?
153.
It's close. I think we've done 2 hours.
We're
before.
almost right up
I think we have 2.
It's here. I mean, it is here.
All right, we will be back. Also, don't forget SoonerScoop, youtube.com/SoonerScoop. We'll be getting more and more content out. We're about to get the pod going live, which I know Josh cannot wait so he can make fun of us for all the things we're doing in the office. What's so bizarre, I don't think the arcade games have been on all month. I think they might have been on like 3 or 4 times.
We've been working too much.
I know. It's ridiculous. I have taken every opportunity to play as much NBA Jam with the Detroit Pistons with Bill Laimbeer and Isaiah Thomas, though. I'm getting pretty good.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Awesome. Great to hear.
So anyway, that's going to do it. We'll be back again next week. And just keep checking out our YouTube channel. Eddie, I know, is very excited about doing more content, and George as well. So you'll keep seeing more and more breakdowns on our YouTube channel. So go subscribe to that and hit that notification bell. Also, we got an order from the SoonerScoop store as we were doing the podcast. So go check it out, SoonerScoopStore.com. We've got everything ready to go. Our merch shipping station is rebuilt, so we're ready to start shipping that stuff out again. SoonerScoopStore.com. Get yourself a hat, T-shirt. We still got Lindsay Street. Still need to put the pressure on with Lindsay Street. Not a done deal at this point. So thanks, everybody, for listening. We'll see you again next week for another edition of the Unofficial 40 Podcast from SoonerScoop.com.